like to share just in a very brief form what Pathfinder does. So Pathfinder has been in Tanzania since 1957. That's before the independence. And at that time, Pathfinder was instrumental in the formation of the family planning associations of Tanzania mainland as well as Zanzibar. And then ever since then, the Tanzania Association of Family Planning is now known as UMATI, it's the current UMATI, so we are credited with the formation of that. So Pathfinder's core business has been, since then, around contraception, family planning, but also we do, so the three core pillars at the moment, we call them, family planning, comprehensive post-abortion care, but also AYSRH. But at the same time, we do other program areas within health where we integrate these three components into those other health areas. And this is where it leads us to the women-led climate resilience, where we are integrating family planning, MCH, sexual reproductive health and rights, into conservation efforts. And we work closely with our partners from conservation organizations, but as well as with the central government and local government in those areas where we're implementing these projects. At the moment, we have around 11 projects, and we work across Tanzania, mainland and Zanzibar. So in each region, we have a presence. This is specifically because of our the large project, the MMAMA project. However, for today, we'll be focusing on our, as I said, women-led climate resilience projects. And these are primarily situated in conservation sites. So we have Kigoma and Katavi. Kigoma and Katavi there, we work closely with our partners, the Nature Conservancy. And if you go to Kigoma and Katavi there, you'll hear of Tuungane. That is the name of the project program. If you go and ask for Pathfinder or TNC, you probably, not everyone will understand who you're looking for. But if you say Tuungane, then you'll find us there. But also in Arusha and Manyara, we also do programming there. Again, we work closely with the Nature Conservancy and the regional and local government authorities there. And similarly, in the southern Tanzania, specifically Ringa, we work with the Southern Tanzania Elephant Project, again, to integrate family planning, maternal, neonatal child health into conservation. So we receive funding from various donors, as you can see there, but specifically for these projects, we are funded generously by USAID, as well as another donor, conservation donor known as MACP, as well as some funding from Swift family. So that is the background in terms of the projects which we'll be talking about today generally. So without further ado, I would like to call upon the panelists, if they could join, they could come up to the panel for us to have the panel discussion. And as we sit up here, I will introduce each one of them one by one before we go into the questions. So we have about 1.5 hours. We'll try as much as possible to spend about 1 hour, or less than 1 hour, questioning the panel here, and then open up to the floor on the ground. So starting from my extreme left, we have Lucy Magembe. She's the country director for the Nature Conservancy. She is responsible for all the programs in the organization, and specifically the programs focused on addressing critical threats to Tanzania natural systems through science-based approaches and policy reforms. Karibu sana, Lucy. We also have Josephat Mshigati. So Josephat works for Pathfinder. He's the regional technical advisor for the women-led climate resilience project portfolios. He is based here in Tanzania, but supporting around 6 countries. Yeah. We also have Nehemiah Eliza. Neemaeli comes from Swakini village, that's in Monduli, Arusha. Neemaeli is a community health worker, but also a PHE, so Population Health and Environment Champion. But she's also chairperson for the primary school committee in Mswakini village. Karibu sana dada Neemaeli. We also have Dr. Samuel Kikaro. Dr. Kikaro is a senior technical advisor for the PHE programs at Pathfinder. He's also the deputy chief of party for one of our projects, the Momentum Integrated Health Resilience Project, and he is based in Kigoma. Karibu sana. And last but not least, we have Deodata Joseph. Deodata Joseph comes from Mgambo village, which is in Buingu, Uvinza, Kigoma. She is the vice chairperson of a farming group at Mgambo. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is our panelists today. So we shall proceed from here. Karibuni sana. So to open up, we'll invite Joseph Mshigati. Joseph Mshigati to expand to us. So when we talk about women-led climate resilience, what are we talking about? What is it? What is the link between family planning, sexual reproductive health and rights, and climate change? So Karibu Josephat, please if you could share on that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, moderator. Because of the audience we have, will allow me to code switch and sometimes to code mix, but primarily a lot of Swahili, because we have the community members and we want them to engage in the discussion. So in Pathfinder, we talk about the importance of integrating climate change into the health programming. This is basically because we are saying health is actually a human face of climate change. We also understand climate change is affecting almost everyone in the world, but there are some specific groups of the people who are much more hit by climate change. And these are the women, these are the girls, and the children. This is the reason why we are talking about the women-led climate change and health resilience. That is one. Secondly, allow me to put a little bit in the passion of climate change in terms of what we talk about. There are so many components of climate change, but for today, allow me just to focus on a few climate change hazards in the health and why we talk about the women, the girls, and the children. There are some severe climate change extreme situations. In Tanzania, we normally experience the prolonged drought, but we also have floods. We also talk about the increased heat, but that is not very severe in our context, although it's also growing largely. Now, when we experience prolonged drought, we have seen in the field, we have the community members here who will testify. They come from those particular areas. A prolonged drought actually leads to declining food production. Now, food production, that is where we have nutrients which are very important for human beings, but specifically for the pregnant women and the children. So when we have declining food production and declining nutrition availability, that is affecting child growth. That's why we see a lot of stunting increasing across Tanzania, and also for those regions which are experiencing prolonged drought. That is just one. But prolonged drought also leads to food water shortage, both availability and quality, which is also affecting maternal and neonatal outcomes. We heard from one of the forums today. But in addition, when we don't have enough water, especially in schools, that is also affecting school attendance for the girls. Many of the girls drop out from school just because of a smaller component on menstrual hygiene. Now, all those dots are SRH dots that I'm trying to connect you guys. But in addition to that, when we have prolonged drought, we also have scarcity of resources, especially water and firewood. And it's actually the girls, it's actually the women who have to walk long distances to look for these scarce resources. And we have experience, we have the data how increased the incidences of GBV are also increasing as we have these women and the girls working long distances looking for firewoods or looking for water. GBV is a component of SRH, and this is how we're linking climate change and those components. When we have prolonged drought, sometimes we see a lot of girls who are dropping from school because they have to cater for family needs. But sometimes we even see incidences where the families actually marry off the girls in order to get some money for the living of those communities. It might not be very visible in Tanzania, but globally we see a lot of those evidences. Now, that is just about the prolonged drought. When we come to another severe climate extreme, which is floods, when we have floods, we see a lot of outbreak of cholera, the spread of malaria. Those are just a few. But we also see how that is affecting the health infrastructure. We also see how that is also affecting the health systems. Now, those are just a few dots of climate change and how they are linked into SRHR. When you go to the coastal area, those who have visited Ipangani, you go to those areas, you find there are some of the villages which have to be relocated, basically because of the ocean water rise, which actually led it to actually relocating the entire village into other areas. Now, there are a lot of SRH dots which are connected to relocation, to the women and to the girls. Another key major thing which we need to check very closely in the health sector is the intrusion of salt water into the freshwater ecosystems and into the farms. When you go to Zanzibar, you experience a lot of this. Along the coast of East Africa, you experience a lot of those. Now, what do we do in Pathfinder? We need to address those things as we work with the women. One of our key strategies, we partner with the non-health organizations so that we're able to reach those communities where we are not working in health. This is why we work with the Nature Conservance, we work with the Climate Action Network. There are many partners across the globe that Pathfinder is partnering with in order to do integrated work to ensure that we build the resilience of the health systems and resilience of the communities themselves. Women leadership at community level is a very key aspect where we want our women to be integrated in so that they're able to influence the decisions. Investing in girls' education is key to us, but also meeting the unmet need for family planning is a very key component for Pathfinder. So any climate work we do, unmet need for family planning is a component that we are trying to address. But what is key for those who came a little bit early, for those who were just ended the session here, economic empowerment of the girls and the women is a very strong tool for climate adaptation, is a very strong tool for building a community resilience. The other thing that we do is linkages and sustainability. Now, just to connect it to the audience here that we have, Pathfinder is working using a population health and environment approach as one of the approaches for building community resilience to climate change, as one of the approaches for building resilience of the health systems. So broadly, in a nutshell, that is how we can link SRH and climate change. At the same time, that is how we do in Pathfinder. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Josephat, for succinctly describing what women-led climate resilience is. but also showing us the linkages between climate change and SRHR. So Josephat says climate change affects everyone, but certain groups are affected disproportionately, and specifically here, women, girls, and children. So thank you for that. Now we go to Lucy, Lucy Magembe. If you could perhaps expand to us on the conservation efforts of the Nature Conservancy, but also share with us how your organization is able to achieve its objectives when it works with other partners, specifically health partners. How is that linkages to health? How is that helping you achieve your goals? Thank you.
Thank you. I know this is heavily a health organization and we're an environmental organization, so yes, I'll talk a little bit about who we are. TNC, the Nature Conservancy, is a global conservation organization. We started working in Tanzania about 16 years ago, and Tanzania was our first country in Africa because this is mostly headquartered in the US. So in Africa, we started off in Tanzania 16 years ago. Our core business is conservation, natural resources management. And here in Tanzania, we work along Lake Tanganyika to support sustainable fisheries management. We work with around the Greater Mahale ecosystem to promote sustainable natural resources management, forestry, and sustainable agricultural practices. We also work along in northern Tanzania near Tarangire and Manyara, and there we promote sustainable rangeland management for the benefit of livestock and wildlife. So that's very important for the economy of the country as far as tourism is concerned, but also for the livelihoods of the people that really depend on livestock. And then we also work along the Indian Ocean, so mostly in Tanga, but also in the Zanzibar Islands, to promote more sustainable fisheries, coral reef management, mangrove management, seaweed farming, and the likes. We understand we will not be able to, we won't stay in these areas for forever. So we have also embarked on issues that are related to sustainable financing. We work very closely with a partner called Carbon Tanzania. And for those who have followed the news recently, we did the initial work, but the business aspect of selling carbon credit was done by Carbon Tanzania. And they managed to bring, I think last year they brought 1.2 billion shillings for the 8 communities, 80 villages along Lake Tanganyika. This year they brought about 1.5, I think, billion again to that community. So we are enabling communities to become more sustainable and to fend for themselves when we are not there. The approach that we use for our conservation is really three-pronged. The first approach we use is to ensure that communities have ownership to the resources that surround them. So we do like land ownership and things like that. And then we go to a second stage whereby we work with the communities to provide capacity and leadership training so that then they can improve their governance of those resources. And then we go to the third stage, because if now that they have value for the resource because they own resource, and now that they are improving their governance, the next stage is definitely to benefit from those resources, because if communities don't benefit from those resources, then there won't be valuing. So we provide mechanism for micro enterprises and things like that. So in a nutshell, that's what we do as an organization. And really our focus is really to ensure that we build resilient communities. We build communities that can thrive in their environment, because by doing so, then we'll be having, communities that are socially, economically, and environmentally sustainable, and that's what we care for. Now, how are we benefiting by working with the likes of PATHFINDER, which is a health organization? As Mshigati said, which I don't want to repeat, our communities live in integrated form. When they encounter problems, they are not only health problems. They also live in environments that, they do agriculture, fisheries, forestry, you name it. And so they suffer from degradation and poor use of resources. And then on the other side, they suffer in terms of maybe not getting access to good quality health services. And therefore, we realized very early on that dealing with one sector and not the other collectively, we won't be reaching the target, or we won't be solving the issues of the communities. So there's no one sector, there's no one single organization that can address the majority or the most complex intertwined challenges that the communities face. We also know that people in the rural areas, they suffer many problems that to be able to address them, you need to look at, I would say, more integrated approach. And I think what Mshigati said was that very early on we decided to embark on population health and environment, or we call it PHE for some of you who know that. Now, how have we benefited by embarking in such approach as opposed to other approaches? First of all, organizations like ours, which work in conservation, we work in very remote areas. And we know our government is trying very much to provide social services, but there are so many areas that have not been reached whatsoever. So when we are there, it's easy for us to bring in collaboration with organizations like PATHFINDER, so we can reach people now in the very, very remote areas. So that's one of the reasons that we decided to partner with PATHFINDER. But then when we started working with PATHFINDER, one thing we realized is, the adoption of reproductive health, the adoption of spacing of the spacing of children in issues of family planning, it became higher. And because of that, it allows the women to do the spacing of the children. When the women do the spacing of the children, they can participate in more economic activities. That means they can diversify in their sources of economy. Like along Lake Tanganyika, fisheries has been the major activity. But when they have, when they have space they have time to embark in other activities, then it reduces pressure on the natural resources. So that's very helpful for us. But also, working with PATHFINDER, it has helped us to build what I would call trust among the communities. They see us coming in as caring mostly about forestry and chimpanzees and freshwater and fisheries. But when we start dealing with the issues that are really core to them, which are health issues, then they build trust. When they build trust, you mean you get support from these communities. And when we get support from the communities, then we can now engage in other activities that are core for our organization, which is environmental management. So that's very important for us. The other thing, what we have observed is that it reduces operational costs. When we go to the community, we go together collectively. We share vehicles, we share offices, and so many other resources. So that tends to reduce costs of operation wherever we operate. The other benefit that we have had is because we go collectively as a group, it reduces fatigue to the community. We go together with a collected message that cut across different sectors. As a result, the community is not fatigued. Today PATHFINDER, tomorrow TNC, tomorrow WCS, the other day JGI. No, we have one collective information, one trip, and we have that integrated message and achieve what we want. So those are some of the areas that I would say has been advantageous for us to work with a health organization. And as such, we've been able to, the limited resources have been expanded to have more impact on the ground. That's enough for now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lucy. So we can see there, Lucy says that collaboration has helped build trust, and through that, they're able to get their message across, message on conservation and other issues at the local level, amongst other things. Thank you very much. So now we'll move on to Neemaeli Liza. Neemaeli, who is a dedicated community health worker, PHE champion. Dada Neema, nitaomba, tunaposema ni wewe ni community health worker, ni PHE champion. Nini hasa shughuli zako katika eneo ambalo unatokea, kijiji cha Mswakini? Kama community health worker, mhudumu wa afya ngazi ya jamii, lakini kama pia PH champion. Ni kazi gani ambazo unazifanya kwa wadhifa huo? Karibu sana.
Asante. Niombe tu niseme ya kwamba nilishatambulishwa. Jina langu ni Maili Sitori Eliza. Nimetoka katika familia ya kifugaji, kijiji cha Mswakini Juu kilichopo wilaya ya Monduli, mkoa wa Arusha. Mimi ni mhudumu wa afya ngazi ya jamii CHW. Majukumu yangu katika kijiji chetu cha Mswakini Juu, ambayo ni mafunzo niliyopata kupitia shirika la PATHFINDER International. Kabla hatujapata mafunzo haya ya afya watu na mazingira, jamii yangu walikuwa hawatumii uzazi wa mpango. Walikuwa ni watu ambao wananyimwa kuhudhuria kliniki. Wanawake walikuwa wanapitia katika hali ya ukatili na wananyimwa kuhudhuria kliniki kipindi cha ujauzito na hata wakati wakiwa wananyonyesha. Lakini baada ya kupata mafunzo haya kupitia shirika hili la PATHFINDER, basi tuliweza kutoa elimu hii kwa jamii yangu na tuliweza kufanikiwa kuwaelimisha na wakapata elimu na uelewa. Kwa sasa wanatumia huduma za uzazi wa mpango, wanawake kuhudhuria katika kliniki. Pia nilipata mafunzo ya ujasiriamali ambayo tulianzisha vikundi vya kokoba. Wanawake walijitokeza vizuri katika kijiji chetu, wakawa wanaweka na kukopa fedha, wakajipatia kipato katika familia zao. Na hata sasa wanawake wamekuwa wana uwezo wa kujipatia kipato na watoto kwenda shule. Wamekuwa ni watu ambao ni wanawake ambao wanafanya biashara zile ndogo ndogo na wana uwezo wa kukata bima ya afya, jambo ambalo wanawake walifurahia sana. Na hata sasa tunaendelea na vikundi, na pia katika kijiji chetu au jamii yetu ya Kimasai tulikuwa hatutumii hivyo, lakini baada ya kuanzisha boma za mfano tuliweza kupata matumizi ya choo, kuchemsha maji salama ya kunywa, kuotesha miti, kwa kuwa shirika hili limetufundisha kutunza mazingira. Na hata sasa mazingira ya Wamasai zimebadilika. Watoto kwenda shule, ile hali ya kuhamahama kwenda pale, mwaka kesho mko pale, kesho kuta mko wilaya hii kile. Wamasai wamekuwa ni watu ambao nao wanakaa, watoto wanaenda shule. Namshukuru Mungu kwa sababu mimi ni mwenyekiti wa shule ni mwenyekiti wa kamati ya shule yetu. Kwa hiyo wakitokea wale watoto wa kiume ambao wanapelekwa sehemu ambao wamehamisha ng'ombe, tunawafuatilia. Sasa hivi wanawake tuna uwezo wa kuendeleza watoto wetu, kuwanunulia vile vitu muhimu, kwa kuwa hawalipi ada kwa kipindi hiki. Kwa hiyo yani mafunzo haya yameleta mabadiliko makubwa katika jamii yetu ya Kimasai. Na kipindi cha uviko pia ilitukuta tumeshaipokea elimu kupitia shirika hili la PATHFINDER. Kwa hiyo imetukuta tukiwa tunatumia vile vibuichirizi, imetupa wepesi wa kuendelea kuwapa jamii yetu ya Kimasai elimu ya matumizi ya vibuichirizi. Kwa hiyo hatukupata tabu katika kipindi kile, na hata sasa wanawake wana mwitikio mkubwa sana. Asanteni.
Asante sana Dada Neema Eli. So I will just very briefly summarize some of the points which she raised. So she comes from a pastoralist community. Before the program started, or before she received some training on PHE, the community was not using family planning, SRH services, but also they had high incidences of GBV. Women were not allowed to visit clinics for MCH services. But all this changed after receiving the training and after them being engaged as community health workers and PHE champions to change the mindset of the community. So she can see positive changes now. Women are using family planning, but also they're giving birth at facilities or at least attending MCH clinics. They were also trained on formation of village saving groups, so community conservation microfinance groups, and these has helped them, especially women who have joined, to start small businesses. So they were able to get some income from these groups, and they were able to start small businesses and be able to have an income. But also the income from these groups has helped the women to be able to pay for community health funds, which have helped them to access health services. Also, the knowledge has helped them, especially the knowledge on model bombers, model households, has helped them to be able to have positive behaviors, PHE behaviors. So now households have improved toilets, households do boil water, drinking water, but also households plant trees around the household. They have tippy taps. They have also reduced sort of the nomadic lifestyles, whereby we see they stay in one place, at least the women and children. The men would go out with the animals, but the women and children will stay. And she's given an example whereby she is actually the chairperson of the school committee, and she actually follows up on children's education at that level. And we see that during COVID-19, with the knowledge they got, they were able to some extent keep sort of the IPC rules. So using the tippy taps, they were able to continue those positive behaviors. Yeah. Thank you very much, Neema Eli. Nashukuru sana. Asante. So now we'll give an opportunity as well for Deodata Joseph, who is the vice chairperson from Gambo Farmers Group in Buingu, Uvinza. Karibu Deodata, maswali yetu ni yale yale. Labda pengine kama unaweza kutambulisha shughuli za kikundi chako hicho cha Gambo Farmers Group, ni shughuli gani ambazo hicho kikundi kinafanya, lakini pia wewe kama makamu mwenyekiti ni nini majukumu yako katika hicho kikundi? Karibu sana.
Asante. Kwa majina naitwa Deodata Joseph. Natokea kijiji cha Mgambo, wilaya ya Uvinza, mkoa wa Kigoma. Mimi ni mama mkulima. Nimejikita sana na masuala ya kulima. Tumepelekea muda mrefu tumelima kilimo ambacho kilikuwa hakina manufaa. Kilimo ambacho kilikuwa ni kilimo holela. Tumelima kilimo kama jinsi wanavyosema Waswahili, kama kupiga mark time. Yaani tunalima kilimo lakini tunachokiambulia hakuna. Tukilima, mvua ikifika, mmomonyoko wa ardhi unakuja, unapitia udongo na kwenda kuumwaga ziwani. Hapo ndipo naenda kufukia madharia ya samaki. Tunajikuta kwamba tumekosa chakula, tumekosa pia lishe ya samaki. Lakini kwa uwezo wa Mwenyezi Mungu, kupitia shirika hili la Tuungane, likatuletea fursa moja ambayo wakasema ungeni vikundi. tukaunga vikundi. Kikundi changu tulikianzisha tukiwa na watu 30. 21 Mei 9. Tumekwenda katika kujikita kulima, tumelima, tukapata mafunzo ya kilimo hifadhi, mafunzo ambayo yalipelekea kukabiliana na mabadiliko ya tabia nchi. Tulipopata mafunzo yale na kuyafanyia kazi, tuliona uwezo gani, tuliona uelekeo gani tunaupata wa kimaslahi kutoka pale tulipo na kuelekea tunakokwenda. Tukaona kwamba kuna mafanikio makubwa kupitia hii programu ya Tuungane kutuletea mafunzo ya elimu bora yanayokabiliana na mabadiliko ya tabia nchi. Tukasema ni jinsi gani tuenende tufanye mpangilio mwingine wa kupata makazi mengine. Akasema basi tufanye mpango wa kuunga vikundi, tuwe tunawekeza katika vikoba ili kwamba tuendelee kujikizi na mambo mengine. Lakini pia ni jinsi gani tunaweza kuwasaidia jamii katika kupambana na mabadiliko ya tabia nchi. Tukawa tukitumana sasa na kuingia katika makundi fulani kwa ajili ya kutoa elimu ya mabadiliko ya tabia nchi. Tunamshukuru Mwenyezi Mungu, wamelipokea kwa wingi, hasa wakina mama. Tumejikuta tuna hali ya kutoka hali ya chini na kwenda hali ya juu. Hivyo sasa hivi tunalima, tunajipatia kipato cha kutosha, tunapata chakula cha kuweka gharani, na kingine tunauza na kujipatia hifadhi mbalimbali kupitia hata maradhi na wanafunzi katika kuwapeleka shuleni. Lengo kubwa ni kuendelea kupata chakula, maana mvua zinapotokea ni kuendelea kupata chakula kingi. Mvua zinapotokea, kwa mafunzo tuliyopata mabadiliko ya tabia nchi, tukajikuta tunaendana jinsi ilivyo. Walituletea, tunashukuru, tuletea mbegu ambazo zinaendana na ukame, tukazifanyia kazi, tukalima, tukapata kipato cha kutosha. Lakini pia wakaona haitoshi, wakatuletea kilimo cha migomba ambacho mpaka leo tulipata elimu, tunaendelea nacho kilimo cha migomba. Tunajua ni jinsi gani ya kupanda mgomba, ni jinsi gani ya kumiliki mgomba, ni jinsi gani wakati wa ukame tunaumilikije huo mgomba. Tukaona kwamba tukapata mafunzo ya kuwekea matandazo. Yale matandazo yanapelekea kulinda unyevunyevu ili ule mgomba usiweze kuharibika. Lakini pia tukajikuta vile vikoba vinapelekea kuweka na kukopa, vinamsaidia mama kama mama kuona kukidhi mahitaji pale alipokuwa ya chini, anakopa na kuendelea kuweka hisa yake, anaenda kujikidhi na mahitaji mengine, hususani elimu na mambo mengine, afya, anakuwa amejikidhi mahitaji kupitia kile. Serikali kama serikali ilituambia haina uwezo wa kusaidia mtu mmoja mmoja, bali kwa jamii nzima kwa kupitia vikundi. Naomba kuwasilisha.
Asante sana, Deodata. So just very briefly, Deodata Joseph is a mother, a farmer. Initially, before Tuungane, before the project, before she received the training, the project, she used to practice traditional or subsistence farming. And in many instances, some of the practices were harmful to the environment. Some led to soil erosion, destruction of fisheries. But through the project, they were able to be convinced to form a group the farming group, and the group was largely women, so there were 30 in total, 21 of whom were women and 9 men. So they were trained on climate-smart agriculture and general conservation. Through that, they were able to realize good produce, and in that they were able to sell some of their produce to get an income, but also save some of those for tougher times during droughts. Through the incomes, they were also able to start or initiate the Vicobas at the village level. And through the Vicobas, they were able also to get an income which they used for health services, education, and so on and so forth. Specifically, also, she gave an example in terms of the education they got on farming, on the knowledge on how to maintain plantains. So that was a specific example from there. So yeah, thank you very much, Deodata. That was a very, very good example in terms of what you're doing there. So now we'll go to Dr. Samuel Kikaro, who is based in Kigoma and is the one responsible for the implementation of the project at the field level, so managing the field officers. So from him, Dr. Kikaro would like to hear from you, what are the lessons that are coming from the field? What is working, what is not working? Karibu.
Thank you, Patrick. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. I see people are tired, and one of the disadvantage of speaking last, most of the points have been spoken by other people, and my duty was to scan what was not spoken by other people so that I can gap fill. And the risk of gap filling after the country director has spoken, it's a risk, you know. But I'm going to speak about the experience, what we have seen in the field, what is working, as you asked, what is working, what is not working also. I will talk about it because we are here to address challenges. That's why we are here. So in the last presentation, there was a lot of, I would say they insisted a lot about integration. So one point which we have seen that it is working is integration. We are integrating health, population, and the environment. So these are the 3 components. We heard when Nehemiah was introduced that she is a PHE champion. I don't know if the audience know what does it mean to be a PHE champion. So we are addressing an integrated project. We are addressing about population issues, the communities who have positive perception about family planning, spacing of children, and having a manageable family size. We are talking about climate change and how to build resilience of our communities. So we are talking about communities who have positive attitude about family planning first. They have positive attitude about spacing of children and other things in connection to the available resources which we have, taking into consideration that they are climate changes issues, as Joseph had mentioned, and the challenges associated with climate change. Secondly, we are talking about population or people who have positive attitude about health. The health component here, it's mainly WASH. So the communities who are using clean and safe water, they have access and they are using clean and safe water. They are using toilets. You know, all the programs you have been hearing from day one up to here, most of them, they're implemented in towns, in centers, but we are based in the conservation areas. We are integrated with health and the environment. I'll talk about more about the conservation piece. These are the remote rural population who are living adjacent to the national parks. So the North Tanzania rangelands, where Nehemiah is coming from, we are close to the Tarangire National Park. So we are serving the communities around the Tarangire National Park. While in Iringa, we are dealing with the community who are around the Ruaha National Park. We call it RRE, Ruaha Rungwa Ecosystem. So those are population who are living in the very remote places, and we are trying to empower them. How do they survive, live better life, while coexisting with the environment and the animals whom we also aim to conserve. So these are the population which, for example, in Kigoma, most of them, they did not have toilets. You know, they save themselves in the lake. We are found along the Lake Tanganyika communities. So they use the lake. Wanajisaidia ziwani hawa watu, ni wavuvi. Most of them, they use the lake. And kwa Masai culture pia, walikuwa hata hawana vyoo. Kwamba kwao ki-tradition, ilikuwa ni kwamba baba akienda chooni, mtoto uendi, si ndio? Hairuhusiwi. So haya ndio maeneo ambayo tunajaribu kuya address. So they have positive attitude kwanza kwenye mambo population, but they consider issues are wash. Wanakuwa wana choo bora, wanatumia maji safi, wana mosquito nets, zile practice kuhusu mosquitoes, lakini pia wana positive attitude kuhusu environment. They plant trees, but they are also not engaged in illegal practices, for example, tree, logging, ule uharamia wa msituni. Hawajihusishi na poaching, because we are a conservation organization. So we are counseling, we are educating our communities not to be engaged in poaching activities. For communities anakotokea Deodata, wale tunawafundisha jinsi gani watafanya climate smart agriculture kwa kuzingatia mabadiliko ya hali ya hewa. Kwa hiyo hizi stories zote hizo kwa nasema hapa ni sisi tulikuwa tunajaribu kuwa empower kwenye climate smart agriculture. How do you produce vizuri kwenye eneo dogo? Badala leo umelima hapa, kesho umelima pale, kesho kutwa umelima mahali pengine. So we are giving them tools to ensure that they have maximum production in the small area which they have. It will help them to ensure food security, because most of the diseases which we see, some of them, it's just because of food security at home. Most of the diseases which we see could be just due to wash, because they don't observe that. Malaria or infectious diseases could be managed if there are better wash practices at home. So our approach is an integrated approach to empower community to embrace the issues of population, health, and the environment. So we have two tools ambazo tunazitumia. Tuna engage wanajamii wetu kujiunga na mfumo tumeita, huyu mama alimention kuhusu kaya mfano, boma la mfano. Boma la mfano tumeset criteria kwamba ili kaya, ili ile household, ili iwe ya mfano, tuliweka vigezo kama 22. Na mpaka sasa I'm happy to report kwamba tuna kaya za mfano 11,000 katika hizi haya maeneo. Kaya 11,000 ni zile ambazo zina mtizamo chanya kuhusu mambo ya family planning, kwa sababu outside unavyoongelea PATHFINDER watu wanatuona kama family planning. Lakini it's more than that, kwa sababu kabla ya kufika kwenye family planning tunajua kuna mahitaji mengi sana ya hizi familia. Kwa tuna kaya za mfano 11,000 ambazo zina mtizamo chanya kuhusu mambo ya family planning, kuhusu mambo ya gender based violence, kwamba wanahakikisha kwamba a girl child kwenye ile kaya ameenda shule. Kaya ambayo inakubali hivi vigezo vyote viko 22, naweza nisivipitie vyote lakini nitavitaja kwa uchache. Binti anaenda shule, wana uhakika wa chakula, wanafata matakwa yote ya wash, wanachoo, wanatumia zile, wananawa mikono, wanazile tabia za kunawa mikono, zile tipi tapi ambazo Patrick amezimention, huyu alisema kibuyu chilizi, hivyo vyote ni vile vile wanatabia zile za kunawa mikono. Lakini pia wanatumia health facility, yani kabla ya kuanza kwenda kwa waganga wa jadi, hawa wana tabia za kutumia health facilities. Lakini pia wana positive attitude kuhusu environment. Na sisi kule mlisikia jana kwa wale waliokuwa kwenye discussion ya CARE International, they are talking about VCLA, Village Savings and Loaning Associations. To us, we have the CCMGs, Community Conservation Microfinance Groups. So these ni zile VCLA, lakini ili upate support ya mradi wetu, mnatakiwa kuwa shughuli mnazojihusisha nazo ni zile ambazo ni friendly to the environment. So it's not a normal VCLA, it's Community Conservation Microfinance Group. So we are supporting these CCMGs. And until now, the CCMGs which are supported by Pathfinder, they have a total worth of 1.2 billion shillings, which is a lot of money. And a lot of them, over 33,000 people from these groups, they have integrated community health funds. So we talk about health insurance. Yesterday there was a huge discussion about health insurance. So one of the low-hanging fruit to ensure that all people in the population are covered is to sustain, to empower community, especially women. Remember, over 60% of VCLA stroke CCMG members are women. So talking about women empowerment, women climate resilience, women health resilience, this is one of the low-hanging fruit because they have a lot of money and they can use that money to have their health insurance ambayo itawasaidia sana. Yakija mafuriko, yakija nini, wana uwezo because out of pocket payment kwa ajili ya health, it's just too expensive. Kwa unavyoongelea kuempower zile community za vijijini, hii ni moja kati ya fursa. Hakuna kijiji leo Tanzania hakina vikoba. Kwa issue ni kuvihakikisha kwamba vile vikoba vinatumika vizuri, wanatumia benefit, faida wanazozipata kwenye vikoba kuhakikisha kwamba wana uhakika wa afya kwenye jamii yao. Tool yetu ya pili ni zile model boma. Nimeripoti hizo model boma ni nzuri sana, zimetusaidia sana kuhakikisha kwamba jamii wanajiunga, lakini pia wanapata benefit zile za afya. Kwa one thing which is working, moja ni integration. We have seen kwamba kwa vile tunafanya health, lakini pia tuna integrate with conservation messages, inatusaidia. We are reaching men ambao walikuwa kwa kawaida ni ngumu sana kuwapata. So through integrated approach, we are reaching more men as compared to routine services. So when you talk about natural resources management, kule ni eneo ambalo unawakuta zaidi wanaume. Kwa hiyo kwa wale wanaopata changamoto za kuwafikia wanaume, you come to us, we'll tell you how to get the men because we know where the men are. So in the NRM, natural resources management messages, this is where we can reach more men. Lakini you don't find many women kwenye NRM. Game scout wa kike ni wachache sana. Ni wachache sana. So through integrated messages, we also expose women to these natural resources management opportunities. It's a empowering tool. It helps us to reach women with the benefits which can be obtained from natural resources because there is a lot of benefit kule hawana exposure. Women are also exposed to entrepreneurship skills through these integrated messages. Lakini hivi haviwezekani ukifanya peke yako. So after the first lesson ya integration, the second lesson is collaboration. You cannot do all these alone. You will be given $1 million for family planning and reproductive health, M1CH, etc. You cannot achieve this peke yako. That's why we partner with TNC. These guys are experts in conservation. We do collaboration. And through that, it's efficient. We don't have offices everywhere. When I go to Iringa to oversee my activities in Iringa, I sit in the STEP office. STEP is Southern Tanzania Elephant Programs. For them, they are concerned about elephants. But through Elephants program, we collaborate. We collaborate, we reach people with health information as they go for the elephant activities. In fact, there are places in one village we went last time, Patrick, it's called Makifu village. This is where women gave us testimony that we don't go to the facilities in the night because kuna elephants wengi sana usiku. Kwa wana deliver nyumbani kwa sababu usiku tembo wanakuwa wanazunguka wanaweza wakawaumiza. Kwa wale wenzetu wa STEP wanajaribu kuelimisha communities how do they coexist with elephants. Jinsi gani wanaweza coexist na elephants. Kwa wakati wao wanaelimisha jamii kuhusu elephants, we educate them about using health facilities. Kwa hiyo hii imetusaidia sana. Collaboration, and I'm happy to see at the back Dr. Boniface from the USAID, who has been pushing us for collaboration and a partnership. You cannot achieve all these things alone. You need to partner with other guys. There are guys who are doing adolescent health. There are guys who are focusing on HIV. There are guys who are focusing on immunization. There are guys who are focusing on other things. So the issue is, how do you collaborate to leverage the resources which we have, because the guy we are targeting, yule mwanakijiji, mwananchi ambaye tunamtarget, huduma anayohitaji ni hii moja. We are targeting the same person. So we need to collaborate, we need to integrate activities so that we maximize benefit to the people we want to save. Asante.
Asante sana, Dr. Kikaro. So we have a few minutes, and I think we have 3 questions, then I'll open it up to the floor. Kikaro, if we could just finish with what doesn't work, what is the challenge, and then I'll go to Josephat and Lucy to complete.
Yeah, changamoto ni nyingi, collaboration, because we are used to work in silos. This one I cannot overemphasize. We are used to, when you are a health organization, you are expert in HIV, and when you talk about integration, you will be integrating HIV with NCD, integrating HIV with TB. So our integration is more than that. So we are used to work in silos, and this is the challenge, because whenever we try to forge collaboration, partnership, you will be together at some point, but along the way, you part ways, because most of us, we grew up like that. So that one is a challenge. I wouldn't say that it is not working, but it's a challenge, I would say. One, regarding service delivery, from this group, I cannot emphasize, or I cannot remind them about the challenges of stockouts of commodities, because our focus, of course, is family planning and the M1CH. So those are, I would say, the challenges which are happening, but the gender-based violences are still a lot happening kwenye communities zetu. We are saving communities which, for example, in Western Tanzania, a woman, kabla ajawa na kale katoto ka 10, kule kuna katoto kanaitwa kabuchumi. Kama mmewahi kusikia mtu anaitwa buchumi, so kabla hujazaa mtoto wa 10 unaonekana wewe bado hujazaa. Umeshaelewa? So before, kama wewe umezaa watoto 6, umesha kaita kabuchumi. Kwa kama hujakaita kabuchumi, wewe bado. So so that one is, I would say, it's a challenge. Providers bias is a challenge. We don't speak the same language, even at the professional level. We have been in facilities where you see a provider say, hey, how many children do you have? Only 2 children. Why do you need IUCDs? Why do you need IUCDs? You only have 2 children. Go. Umeshaelewa? Kwa kuna watu wa huduma ambao wana deny services, or they bias services to the clients because of their own feeling or their own thing. So those are the challenges. That's why we are here. We are here to help to address the providers' challenges and things which are happening at the community. Yeah.
Asante sana. So then one minute, 1 minute for Lucy and 1 minute for Josephat. To Lucy, why focus on women? So women-led climate, why focus on women? Please, karibu. 1 minute.
Wow, 1 minute, that's very hard, but I don't know. I mean, I needed to share some facts that maybe you can give me 2 minutes, please. You see, at the moment, we are facing big challenges, like really big challenges in terms of biodiversity loss and rapid climate change. And then you're looking at when you look at climate change, we're looking at biosphere. Biosphere is like all the resources, forests, wetlands, and what have you. They maintain 3 times the amount of carbon that we have in the air. And yet, we're going to suffer a lot if we continue with the current trend of how we are using our natural resources and how we practice agriculture. We're going to release additional carbon emission that is stored on the ground. So making our climate issues even worse. We're talking about droughts and floods and what have you. We're going to make them worse if we don't do that. Now, another fact is, half of the population of this world are women and girls. And then, almost more than half of the world's population is women engaged in agriculture. Or more of the people who are engaged in agriculture, 50% or more are women. So if we don't engage women, and they engage in agriculture big time, and agriculture is known to bring, if it's not done well, to bring a whole lot more emission, meaning more climate change and more disasters. I would say if we do not engage women, we do things in silos, then we are totally getting it very wrong for ourselves, for our own sakes. And then I just want to conclude that we had done an analysis of 11,000 articles, 24 websites, and we looked at keywords like forestry, fisheries, gender, women, you name it, many things. And we realized that if you involve women, if the norms and the culture involve women, then natural resources protection increases. There's one study that was done in India which showed just by engaging women, conservation was better by 10%. That's one. Secondly, if you engage women but you make them leaders, conservation management is even improved. And when natural resources are better managed, it means the women and children who are usually tasked with fetching water, fetching firewood, farming, are in a better position. And so they care more about natural resources management, and therefore there's more improvement in natural resources management. I would like to just end up there.
Thank you very much, Lucy. That's very clear. And finally, to Josephat, if you could close and share with us, well, okay, we'll open up to the floor, but so we have this model, the women-led climate resilience model. How do we sort of ensure sustainability of this approach or its impact to society? If you could share a little bit on that.
Yeah, just to pick from where just Lucy ended, I think from the presentation we have learned from the climate hazards, all those effects, they end up on the women, on the girls and the children. So sustainability of this model will really depend on how much we engage, how much we empower the women and the girls to be involved in the local climate action planning and implementation. That is very key, and that should be promoted not just in Tanzania, but across the globe, because climate change is actually impacting these groups everywhere globally, but mainly in sub-Saharan Africa. So their engagement is key to sustainability. The second is building more on country ownership and country scale up of these programs. So we do work very closely with the Ministry of Health on this. But traditionally, the issues around climate change have been under the Vice President Office and the VPO, the National Designated Authority for Tanzania. So most of the engagement have been relying under their office, and the Ministry of Health has been left aside for quite a long time. So sustainability of these things need to include the Ministry of Health, the VPO, to ensure that there is this integrated programming in order to achieve those indicators for climate change in Tanzania. We have a document called the National Determined Contributions, the NDCs. Those are the commitments the government has made to the global community. So how can we develop programs and projects which are addressing those indicators in the NDCs? If we do that, we're able to achieve. But also looking at what the government has made commitments in their national climate change response and adaptation strategy, and to ensure all the programs that have been developed across the country, they are in a way responding to those key priorities in that way, we are able to achieve sustainability. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Josephat. So engagement and empowerment of women, but also country ownership for scale-up involving the cross-ministerial Vice President's Office, but also MOH and other ministries. Thank you very much. So yes, at this point, I would like to invite the audience here. If anyone has any questions, perhaps specific question to a specific panelist. So if you call out the panelists, that would be good. But if it's a general question as well, those are welcome. So we'll take a few of those questions. We have about 28 minutes. So yes, please. I don't know who has a mic. So I can see a hand at the front. Right at the front here. So if you could introduce yourself and then ask your question. And if you could point it out to a specific panelist, that would be good. But generally also, it's okay. Thank you.
Naitwa Kashilila na asante sana kwa mada nzuri. Swali langu linajaribu kumuuliza Neema Saitori. Kwenye mila za Kimasai kama ulivyosema ni wafugaji, swala la uzazi wa mpango nafahamu linafanya vizuri sana kwa tamaduni za Kimasai, na ndio maana sisi tukiwa wanaume wa Kimasai tunakuwa na wanawake 6, 7. Na uwezi kukuta mwanamke wa Kimasai na watoto 9 au 10. Huwa sijawahi kuisikia hiyo. Sasa katika programu hii ni kitu gani kipi ambacho kimeletwa nyinyi hamlikuwa mkijui ambacho sasa kimeleta faida? Lakini pia la pili, kwenye tamaduni za wafugaji wa Kimasai, tofauti na wale wanatoka kaskazini, huwa hamkati miti, mnaishi na miti wala hamchomi misitu. Wahifadhi wazuri sana wa mazingira. Sasa hili swala la kwamba mnapanda miti, kumetokea nini mpaka mnaanza kupanda miti? Asante sana.
Asante sana. Tutachukua maswali mengine mawili, alafu tutajaribu kujibu.
Asante sana. I'm very impressed with the experience you have shared, in particular the lessons learned from Dr. Kikalo, yes. Yeah. And I was eager to know more. You know, when you talk of reaching men, I liked the way you shared, but I was wondering, because one of the biggest challenges in reaching men, people are striving is, yes, the issue of how, but also what to deliver to men so that it can really attract them, and then they can maintain, following it, so that we have enhanced behavioral change that we wish. So I was wondering whether you have any tools you are using with the content and the methodologies that you really can embrace that you are reaching men. So that was one. The other one goes to Dr. Josephat. I think on women empowerment, as you said, is very key to sustainability. Just eager again to learn if there are any model which that has been used to really empower women and the girls for that sake. Thank you.
Yeah, one more question and then we answer.
Asante. Naitwa Haika Mtui kutokea CARE. Ni washukuru sana panelist kwa yale ambayo umeyatoa leo. Nina swali moja ama mawili. Nimesikia na nimefurahi kusikia there's a gender mainstreaming, there's also male engagement. Lakini kuna kundi moja ambalo sijasikia either mikakati yake ama any success stories ambazo zimekuwa zikitokea. Kwa sababu siku 2-3 we have been receiving very alarming and shocking news in regard to youth or youngster. So opportunities ambazo mnaziona kwenye conservation, kwenye economic activities, kwenye development, what do you do to attract them, to attract youth, to attract youngsters to get involved in development activities or in economic activities? There is also issue of healthy, there is also technology, and we also have urbanization. sorry, not in a bad way, but we don't want to see them again in Dar es Salaam, just roaming around. So what do you guys do to keep them where they are and take the opportunities that they have to do a meaningful businesses or economic activities? Thank you.
Asante sana. Maybe if there's any couple more questions, we can add 2 more. Okay, there's one there. Karibu.
Asante, nafurahi nimesikia majirani zangu, nimejifunza vitu vingi. Swali kwa Josephat na Madam Lucy. I'm a little bit lost somewhere. We are talking of women, leaving the boys aside. Tunasema women empowerment, yes. How is it easy to implement the project without many inclusiveness? What's your experience? Asante.
Asante sana. So I think we can go to the panel. So kuna swali jingine? Kuna swali moja. Karibu.
Yes, my name is Anna Nakaza, and I have just one question for Madam Lucy. She spoke about carbon trading, Tanzania, and a lot of people have received money from carbon trading. Maybe if she can just elaborate just a little bit more about carbon credit, maybe we may be in a position to at least understand it more. Thank you.
Asante sana. So maybe if we go to the panel, we can start with the first question, which goes to Neema. Neema, if you remember the question, is about the traditions of the Maasai. Kashila here said that he knows the Maasai very well, that usually a man may have up to say 6 wives, but it's not necessarily that each of those wives will have many children. But also the issue of conservation. We know that Maasai, by tradition, they don't cut trees. So what is it that is new that the program is teaching your communities? Karibu.
Asante. Kilichotokea katika jamii yetu ya Kimasai ambao wanaoa wanawake 6 hadi 10, kwa mfano babangu ana wake 9, lakini baada ya kwa mtu akiwa na watoto, hata kama una watoto 70, maana katika familia yetu tuko wengi, elimu ikawa inawazidi jamii ya Kimasai, kwa sababu yani serikali ilikuwa ikiwafuatilia na kuwachukua hao watoto kupeleka shuleni. Na baada ya hayo tukapata haya mafunzo, tukawa tunatoa katika jamii yetu ya Kimasai, na mabadiliko yakaanza kutokea. Kwa upande wa kina mama, wanakuwa wanajibia kwenda kujipatia huduma za uzazi wa mpango. Na sasa hivi unaweza kumkuta mama ana mume wake lakini ana watoto 4. Kwa sababu serikali inasema ya kwamba kuzaa sio lazima, lakini kusomesha ni lazima. Kwa hiyo hayo mabadiliko yakaanza kutokea katika jamii yetu ya Kimasai, kwa sababu mtu anasema nitafanyaje sasa, na nikiwazaa wakiwa wengi serikali itanifunga. Hilo nadhani umeanza kulielewa kwamba Wamasai wameanza kufanyaje kukubaliana na hali halisi ya mabadiliko ya elimu. Kwa hiyo sasa hivi unamkuta Masai anawasomesha watoto wake mpaka chuo kikuu, mama na yeye anakuwa anajitahidi, lakini kwa kiasi kikubwa mwanamke ndiye anayejitahidi katika jamii yetu ya Kimasai watoto waweze kwenda shule, hususan kwa upande wa watoto wa kike. Na kinachowasaidia sana wanawake kuwawezesha watoto wao kwenda shule ni baada ya kupata mafunzo ya vikundi vya kokoba, wakajiunga wakawa wanawekeza, afu baadaye akiona ubaguzi umetokea kwamba baba anampeleka huyu wa kiume, wa kike anapokea mahari, mama anakuwa na mbinu ya kumwezesha huyu binti, anampa hela, anamwambia embu fika sehemu fulani, fika sehemu fulani, anapata utetezi, anaendelea na shule. Lakini anapofika kule shuleni, baba hatamtumia matumizi aina yoyote ile. Kwa hiyo mama anakuwa anapambana wekeza huku anakopa kwenye kikundi, akiendelea kufanya kazi ya kuingiza kwenye kikundi ili aweze kurejesha mkopo. Kwa hiyo hiyo hali ikawa imewasababisha Wamasai kukubaliana na hali halisi kwa ajili ya kuwasomesha watoto. Upende usipende, mtoto anaenda shule.
Kuhusu mazingira, nini kipya mnajifunza? Unasema kukata miti, mlikuwa mkati miti. Sasa nini kipya ambacho mnajifunza kuhusu kutunza mazingira?
Sawa. Kwa upande wa mazingira, jamii yetu ya Kimasai tulikuwa tukiwaona watu wakikata mkaa tunakuwa tunastaajabu sana. Lakini baada ya kuona kwamba kumbe ukiuza unapata hela, jamani, wanawake wakawa wanafunga viuno, wanaenda wapi? Msituni, wakaharibu mazingira kweli. Lakini namshukuru Mungu, baada ya kupata hivi vikundi, hiyo hali ikawa imeisha. Hata sasa hakuna mwanamke ambaye anaenda tena kufanya kazi ya ukataji wa mkaa, kwa sababu kwanza tunafundisha namna ya kuboresha mazingira yetu kwa kuotesha miti. Sasa nikimkuta kule anaendelea kukata, nitamwambia umetokea wapi? Kwa hiyo kwa sasa hivi hiyo hali imeisha.
Asante sana. Tutaenda kwenye swali linalofuata. Ni swali kwa Dr. Samuel. Reaching men. How are we doing it? What tools are we using? But not only the how, but what is it that we are sharing? What messages are we sharing with men? Karibu.
Asante. Labda nianzie tu kukazia kwa Nemaeli alipoelezea, ili vile vikundi viendelee kupata support ya mradi, lazima viwe vinajihusisha na shughuli ambao ni rafiki kwa mazingira. Kwa kama wana vikundi hata kama ni 8 au 9, ili viendelee kupata support yetu, lazima viwe havijihusishi na hizo shughuli. Kwa issue ya kuchoma mkaa, kukata miti ni moja kati ambao ni shughuli ambazo haziruhusiwi kwenye vile vikoba ambao viko kwenye eneo letu lile la mradi. Kwa hiyo slowly wajumbe wakaanza kuadopt hiyo behavior na wanabadilika. Swali kuhusu wanaume ni wagumu sana kuwapata. Yeah, it's not easy to get men. Kabla hata sijajiunga na hizi program za PHE, nimefanya kwenye hizi shughuli za ukimwi kwa muda mrefu kidogo, na wanaume walikuwa wagumu sana kuwapata. Ni disadvantaged group, linaelekea kuwa priority groups, kwa sababu even in HIV care, majority of clients on ART are women, na wanaokufa haraka are men, because they join the service late when they are too sick to extent kwamba wanakufa. Sasa one of the beauty of integration ni kwamba ukiwa kwenye facilities where there are many women who are coming at the health facilities, we use that opportunity to provide other income generating activities, opportunities at the health facility. We expose them to natural resources management interventions which are happening at the village, at the health facility. The opposite, when we go to the activities zile za uhifadhi, ukienda kwenye vile vikundi, kwa mfano kwenye ule mkutano wa kijiji, village government meeting, these are the meetings which are predominantly dominated by men. So we go there for the natural resource management messages and other things, na mikwara kwamba tutafanya forest scout na nini na kadhalika, si ndio? There are men there, and we use that opportunity because we are not only doing conservation, we are also doing family planning. So we use that opportunity to talk about family planning, because these are the ones who are supporters of their spouse for family planning services and the users of family planning messages. So when we go for NRM, natural resource management activities, in the village government meetings, that's a perfect opportunity to reach men with family planning. Nenda kijijini, itisha kikao kwamba wanaume njooni, nataka niwape habari kuhusu uzazi wa mpango, hawatakuja. Ila ukiwaambia jamani, msitu wa kijiji huu tunataka tuuongeze, wote watakuja, kwa sababu wanautumia ule msitu kwa ajili ya kuni, kwa ajili ya kuchana mbao na kufanya nini. Kwa hiyo wakati mnawapiga mkwara kwamba msiende kwenye msitu, kuna sheria inabadilika, alafu ngojeni niwaambie kitu. Kuna huduma za uzazi wa mpango zinapatikana, kuna faida ya kuspesi, inasaidia food security, inasaidia upeleke watoto shule. Kwa hiyo it's a perfect opportunity kwetu sisi to reach them. Hiyo ni moja. Ya pili pia, we have these groups, kwa mfano wale mascout wetu ambao wanatumika kulinda misitu. Hawa karibia 90% ni wanaume. So as part of their training, sisi tunafanya integrated training. Watapata training yao ya kulinda misitu, safeguarding na mambo mengine, alafu tunachomekea na ujumbe wa uzazi wa mpango, spacing, umuhimu wa kutumia kituo cha afya cha jirani na kadhalika. So through an integrated approach, inatusaidia sana to reach men with health information, not only family planning, importance of immunization, vaccination and other things, maternal health and other things. In the natural resource management platforms, there are many. Kuna village land use committee. Wenzangu hapa hawajaongelea. You know, unavyoongelea uhifadhi, pia tunaongelea matumizi bora ya ardhi. Kwamba this is designated for farming. This area is designated for public facilities, schools, churches, mosque, etc. So the members of village land use meetings, over 90%, almost often ni wanaume. But for us, all congregation iliyopo pale kijijini ni opportunity ya natural resource management, ni opportunity ya health. So that's the beauty of integration. Inatusaidia sana kuwafikia wanaume and vice versa. Because also women who are not exposed to these conservation opportunities, conservation activities, and the livelihood opportunities which are offered by organizations and other things, they get it at the health facilities. So they learn about CCMGs, COCOBA, VSLAs at the health facilities. All information is embedded in there. Thank you.
Asante sana Kikaro. Thank you, Kikaro. If Kikaro also, you could just take the other question about the missing group. So they've heard about, the audience here have heard about men, have heard about women, but they've not heard about the youth. The youngsters. What are we doing to attract the youth in these programs? So very briefly, perhaps in 1.5 minutes, so that we can move on to Joseph and Lucy.
We really push for education as one of the tools where we are reaching youth. We also have PHE school clubs. So we are reaching youth at the tender age in primary school and the secondary schools. This is an opportunity where we use to reach youth. So through the PHE school clubs, this is where we are reaching youth with family planning messages. Not only family planning, it's sexual reproductive health, education, information, counseling, and the services to youth. But also, this is an opportunity which we use for them to take home messages to their parents about the importance of conservation. So this is where we reach most of the youth, especially those who are in schools. But out of school youth, they are also used through the network which we have also established. And actually, the Game Scouts, most of them, they are young people. We don't have Game Scouts who are over 50 or 60 years. Most of them are active young people.
Asante sana. Thank you. Now, to allow maybe Lucy, if you could speak to expand on the carbon trading. So the partnership with Carbon Tanzania, if you could elaborate on the issue of carbon credits, perhaps on how those work. But there was also a question again on women, how about boys, which I think Ikaro to some extent has addressed. But if there's anything to add, you may as well add something there. Thank you. Karibu.
Okay, thank you. So first of all, I want to add more on youth also. So we have VGS, which are Village Game Scouts, but we also have beach management units. Both of those have more youth and more men than women, to the extent that even the government, through the Ministry of Fisheries and Livestock Development, have passed a policy and law that any BMU, beach management unit, has to have at least a minimum 25% representation that's women. So it's because, you know, access to resources, rights to resources, decision about resource use, they are in majority places controlled by men. And so even though we have been talking about women, it doesn't mean men are ignored. They are definitely involved in all sorts of ways because they're very core. But we are making concerted effort to increase the left behind groups. And in this case, definitely it's youth and women. I also wanted to mention that through our program in Tungane, we decided to develop 2 dormitories, each taking in 80 student girls, because the school in Buhingu doesn't have lights. When it comes to Form 4 exams, the teachers have to collect money to buy mishuma na chemli, but only boys can stay behind to study, which means failure among young girls was 100%. So we had to make that concerted effort. We are not favoring the girls, but it was a dire situation where girls are concerned, walking 50 kilometers every day. When they go back home, they have to engage in house chores, no time whatsoever to participate in studying for the exams, hence the 100% failure. Since we erected these dormitories, we have had 0 failure, and we are having maybe Division 3s and a few Division 4s, but completely 0, that doesn't happen anymore. And now we are even bringing volunteer students to come and teach them, to make sure that, you know, they can bring more energy to the teachers and enable these students, all of them, to excel, both boys and girls. Another thing I wanted to add, so going back to the women, as I said, resource use, resource access, knowledge about resources, knowledge about natural resources management. It's heavily on men. And again, as I said, men are the ones also who own land. When we started working, for instance, in northern Tanzania, in the Maasai land, women were not allowed to own land. But then we had this women forum, which involved welcoming the wazee, the elderlies from the Maasai community, to come and discuss women issues. Eventually, the men allowed women, now they can own land. But that was never the case. So this was concerted effort to bring women. When it comes back to carbon trade, so there are different ways for carbon trade. I think many of you know that this is a big thing right now in the world, and there are different ways of doing it. There's through REDD+, which is forest related, which is one we have done so well through Carbon Tanzania. And then there is the blue carbon. This is about mangroves and seagrass, so this is oceanic. And then now we are introducing soil carbon, which we have done well in northern Kenya, in the similar semi-dry areas in Kenya. And so we want to see how the rangelands in northern Tanzania and the Maasai steppe can also benefit from soil carbon. What is this soil carbon? Basically, you have to do a lot of science to determine how much the resource can sequester carbon. So there's some scientific calculations, and then that is marketed to buyers. Buyers are usually people who are polluting, but they want to offset their pollution. And so you have to find those buyers who are interested. It's voluntary, it's not mandatory. And when you find the buyers, but we are having increasingly more buyers coming in, they buy that and they bring you the money. So far, as I mentioned, the 8 villages, for instance, along Lake Tanganyika, since last year, they've generated 2.5 billion shillings. The way this operates is that the money comes in. Carbon Tanzania has been given a right by the government of Tanzania to retain a certain percentage. A certain percentage goes to the community that own the resource, and a certain percentage is retained by the district that supervises that community. We, TNC, and other people supported the government of Tanzania, the Vice President Office, to develop carbon trading guidelines. They've just revised them, So that guides now anybody who wants to do carbon trading. There are guidelines under the Vice President Office. And then there's the National Carbon Monitoring Center in Morogoro, where if you want to do this, you have to fill certain forms, pass through the Vice President Office, then to the Carbon Monitoring Center, and then you can start doing business. The last point I want to make is some of these, this is a good way to ensure that the resources can be managed without TNC or USAID or any donor. When we finish the projects, then the community can continue by themselves because they have this income. The other thing that this is allowing us to do is that the communities, like the ones along Lake Tanganyika, they've built their own very nice fancy dispensary. The ones in Arusha who they traded through Qatar, I think it was Qatar Air, gave them some money. They established an insurance. Everybody in that community has health insurance. They've established a scholarship for their children. So it's very good for development. Of course, the other side is we have to make sure, I think there's a global debate whether, there was a time when there was greenwashing, and so there are debates whether this is also some kind of greenwashing, making, we have to limit emission and not making a room for polluters to continue pollute immensely. So there's those debates that are going on, but on the other hand, this is a good resource for developing countries. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Lucy. I think we are moving towards the end here, and maybe Josephat, I don't know if you have anything to add. There was a question which was directed to you with regards, do we have any model for women empowerment? Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, just because of the time, we have a model. Dr. Kikaro has done some bits of it, but mainly capacity building, that is key to our model, and supported by the behavior change communication. Those are two things that we bridge them together in our integrated programming, and that is how we have been able to do the women empowerment work. But we also have for the youth, specifically we have a youth engagement strategy for the Tuungane project, which we are using to reach the youth. Including the first-time mothers, we have a specific package for that cluster of the youth. For the interest of time, allow me to end here.
Asante sana, thank you very much. Please, a warm round of applause to the panelists. Nashukuru sana, sana, sana. And really would like to thank you, the audience, for taking your time to be in this session, which is the last session. We know you could have been in any other sessions, but you chose to be here, so we really thank you. We hope we can continue engaging beyond this panel. So we are around here. You know us, our organizations, TNC, Pathfinder. So if there's anything that you think that we could collaborate, work together, or if there's any resources that we could share, please do reach out to us. Asanteni sana na washukuru sana. Have a good evening. Pathfinder team, TNC team, if you're here, we can take a group photo here. Yeah, karibuni. Asanteni wengine.
Okay, while they are taking photos, please do not leave the room. Whose session is about to start? We're just doing some preparations. Usiondoke.